Good morning, everyone. I would like to call the Agriculture Service Board meeting for October 2nd, 2024, meeting to order. The meetings are recorded and may be posted on official Wheatland County social media channels. Agriculture Service Board is conducting this meeting in person and via conference call in accordance with the Municipal Government Act, Section 199. Council Chambers is open for public attendance in person, while continuing to use the current telecommuting process in place. Welcome, everyone. We do have one member joining remotely, so I will, and one, do you have Jason in there? Jason Wilson? No. And one member seems to be absent, so we'll do a roll call. Member Bigger?
Here.
Member Eichert?
Here.
Member Link? Good morning. Member Greer?
Here.
Member Laursen?
Here.
Member Desmet?
Present.
Member Kester, are you there?
Present.
And is Member Wilson on the line? No, I didn't hear from him, so must be absent. So we have an agenda before us. Are there any additions? I actually have one addition. If we could add under new business, we have an RFD for our bursary program. We have 3 applicants. The committee has made a recommendation that we'll propose to the board. So that will be 2.3.4. If there's any other additions to the agenda? If not, a motion to...
I'll move the agenda be adopted with amendments.
Thank you, Member Bigger. I will call the question. I'm in favor. Member Bigger?
Favor?
Member Eichert?
In favor.
Member Link? In favor. Member Greer?
In favor.
Member Larson?
In favor.
Member Desmet?
In favor.
And Member Kester?
In favor.
And that is passed. We have the minutes to the July 3rd, 2024 ASB meeting. Were there any errors or omissions? If not, a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
I'll make the motion to approve the minutes as presented.
Thank you, Member Greer. I'll call the question. I'm in favor. Member Bigger?
Favor?
Member Eichert?
In favor.
Member Link? In favor. Member Greer?
In favor?
Member Larson?
In favor.
Member Desmet?
In favor.
And Member Kester?
In favor.
Thank you. That's carried. We will move on. We have a presentation this morning. We have Janet, forgive me, you'll have to say your last name, Patrick Quinn. Thank you. She's an assistant farmer's advocate from the Alberta Farmers Advocate Office. If you wouldn't mind coming to the podium, you'll need to turn on the microphone and then you may proceed. Thank you very much.
Just turn it on.
Okay.
I think we're good. So good morning, everybody. Thanks for having me out to speak this morning. And I guess the topic of the day is going to be around the Agricultural Operations Practices Act. Okay. So this is just a quick agenda here that what we'll kind of go through. The main topic is going to be regarding part 1 of nuisance, which is under our office. The other parts are under different jurisdictions, but I'll explain that as we go through. So probably most of you are aware we've been around for over 50 years, our office has. And the reason our office was originally formed and continues to exist is so that our rural Albertans have a voice to be recognized, make sure they understand processes, and that they are protected, their rights are protected. This is just a quick slide. I'm not going to go right through this one, but it just kind of shows how our calls come into our office, who they come through, and then kind of where it lands as far as the different parts of our office. And as you can see, they come in from actual farmers, they come in from counties, they come in from MLAs, they come in from the minister. And then when we're out speaking and stuff, there's usually lots of conversation that comes up and referrals come through that. And then we have, it can be something just as simple as information that we send out, or we can be actively involved. A large part of our office is around the energy and utility sector and renewable energy. That's probably half of the calls that we get through our office. And we license all the farm implement dealers and distributors in the province. So that's another piece. And then in yellow is kind of all of our appeal hearing functions that we do. So a little background on AOPA and the different pieces of the legislation. So in 2020, we kind of inherited a piece of legislation, and that's the insurance portion for farms and ranches that requires all farms and ranches have some type of insurance for their employees, whether it be a private insurance company or whether it's through WCB. And then part 1, this is going to be the focus of our discussion today, will be around claims that come in regarding noise, odor, smoke, dust, those kinds of considered nuisance claims. And they can come in not just from your neighbor, which I'll get into in a little bit. So part 2 is this part, the jurisdiction of this is under the NRCB. And they are the compliance enforcement part of livestock and manure regarding CFOs. So that most of that part is handled through them. Sometimes they ask us to step in sometimes and try to help mediate some situations. But we have a very open working relationship between them and our office. And then there's part 3, and that's just and that's through agriculture and irrigation. And this part just gives the ability to make regulations and codes. So AOPA Part 1 nuisance. This provides a protection for agricultural operations, basically so that they don't continually see the same nuisance come up again and again, and it protects them if they go through the process and it turns out the way they hope. It protects them from future lawsuits. But of course, they have to be in compliance with all the other pieces. And so your land use bylaws, any permits that are required or regulations around AOPA under Part 2, and then that they are following generally accepted agricultural practices. So this is I'll get into that next, kind of what that means. It's quite subjective But part one does not give the ability for all ag producers to do whatever they want on their land and ever. There's all the other pieces around land use development, environment, human health, all those pieces come into play as well. So as we call generally accepted agricultural practices, we call it GAP. So here's a big long definition, but basically this is the practice that is considered to be commonly used, well-known in the industry for the specific type of operation that we're dealing with should a nuisance claim come in. And this gap is what the peer review committee uses as their standards as to whether they feel they're operating within those guidelines. And that's used in their hearing process. So the peer review, there's two terms used here. It's called peer review. It's also called practice review committee. The purpose behind this is to hear and resolve these applications that come to the minister that are regarding anything nuisance. As I said, your smoke, smell. Smell is probably the most common one that we hear of and that the NRCB hears. And there's a few different ways and parties that can actually make application to our office that they can hear, and it can come in by a neighbor or anyone who's directly affected by the nuisance that they're making application with, or it can actually come in by the owner or the operator. I'll get into why they would actually want to do that. And then we can also get a referral from the NRCB. And that usually happens because the NRCB has a situation where the operator is in compliance, but the nuisance complaints are not going away. So they may refer it to us and hope to put an actual decision behind it to move forward. So prior to it actually going to a hearing, the peer review committee can step in and do mediation. 9 times out of 10, the mediation happens prior to this process. We've had a couple occasions where application has been made to the minister to set up the committee, and the minister has sent it back and said, please try one more time to mediate this before we go. And in those instances, it actually has been successful. However, if that resolution doesn't happen, then it will go through the full process where the committee will make a recommendation to the minister that may include a GAP certificate, or it may not. So in order to initiate a review, our office has to receive an application, and then we deal with all of the procedural issues prior to making the recommendation to the minister. So of course, our office has to make sure everything's followed through the rules of administrative justice, and we do act as an impartial third-party body. So your neighbors or directly affected people will apply to our office and request a review of the ag practices with details as to what exactly the practice is that they have the issues with. And if there is merit, then a panel will be appointed. And so here's where I'll get into why an owner or operator would request a review. So they may know that there is an issue out there, that there is complaints, there is a concern of a nuisance, and that there isn't an application going forward. So they would make applications so that they could go through the process, and they're believing that what they're doing is within GAP, and at the end of it, get a GAP certificate, and that will provide them that protection for this coming up again and again. However, if that practice was to change, the GAP certificate is null and void. So that would be, they would be basically getting a jump start and trying to get ahead of this. So when the results come out from a decision, it is not public. So our decisions are not public and can't be used in any future court proceedings. So the NRCB has a big role up front with this. We sometimes see just general phone calls of complaints, and then we send them to the NRCB so that they can do an investigation and see if they're in compliance. And that's when it either gets resolved, compliance happens, or it gets triggered back to ourselves. So during that, we work very closely with the NRCB. So the actual process for going through a review is that the minister approves to have that PRC set up, and he also approves the members that are selected to sit on the review. So we do not have a roster of members just sitting waiting to sit on these, because each of them are so specific, and we have to ensure that we have at least 2 of our 3 members have specific knowledge in that type of industry. So say it was a hog operation and it was a specific practice regarding their lagoon, we would seek out members that have that experience with that type of manure storage or livestock practice. And I will tell you, this is pretty hard to fill sometimes. We had a review down in southern Alberta, and it was a dust complaint, and we could not find other ag producers that would sit on this. That was a review against one of their peers. They did not want to be the decision maker. They either did business with them. So we had a tough time filling that, but we had to pull out of a different area of the province. So that can be an issue. And each review is so specific to their circumstances that there would be no point in having just a general roster. So we have an appeal coordinator in our office, and she basically guides everyone through the process and deals with all the logistics, deals with helping everyone prepare for the process, making sure they know what information they need, what evidence they need to provide, ensuring them exactly how the process is going to go, and try to make them feel comfortable with the situation. The date and location is usually done close to wherever the operation is, just for convenience purposes. And once you head down this path, like I said, mediation can occur, and it can be withdrawn right up to the date of the review. So basically, at the review, both parties are going to present their evidence and their information. We try to keep it somewhat informal so everybody stays comfortable. And most of the time, unless it's a large claim, there aren't lawyers involved. But once there is lawyers on one side, there usually ends up to be lawyers on the other side. And then it gets quite formal and the process definitely gets extended. So the committee hears all of the presentations and evidence, and quite often there's a lot of clarifying questions happens during the review. Once the committee is satisfied with the information they've received, they will excuse the parties and a decision is made at that time unless additional information sometimes has been required. But the decision must come out from the minister within 30 days of that review. So following the review, the minister receives a recommendation from the committee, which may or may not include recommending a gap certificate for the owner or operator, or it may be denied. As I said, that goes to them, the parties, but within 30 days. This decision is not appealable other than under judicial review for procedural reasons. And that would have to be granted by the courts. So that's kind of a quick show of what we do as far as the peer review side of things. I don't know if you have questions around AOPA in general. I know it's, I'm going to say it. This is the only thing we have that's close to right to farm legislation. But I wouldn't consider it actual right to farm legislation. This is all there is right now. I can't speculate what may come in the future. I know there is a big push for additional legislation.
Excellent. Yeah, we had sort of been discussing different things that we've seen elsewhere. So I think BC has a little bit of I was reading it a month or so ago. So they have some legislation that's sort of right to farm, but it's not super, I don't know. I don't think it has a lot of teeth to it either.
Right.
But, yeah, so we were just with a situation here in Wheatland County, we have a lot of development happening, especially on the west side of our county. And so a lot of new people to rural living.
Right.
And then the existing producer community sometimes feels concerned that, they'll be limited in their ability to do their job and to continue farming as they always have, because it is a dusty, smelly, there are nuisances associated with it, but it's necessary. And we're just been talking about how we can support our agriculture ratepayers. So this is interesting. Yeah, I didn't know that this was available. And you must deal, though, with pretty large scale complaints, you say? Or
we deal with a full scale of, so AOPA is for all ag operations in the province, but we've never had a PRC that wasn't CFO related. I'll put it that way. Okay. We see lots of these complaint issues that come more on the farmers advocate side of things, where we try to, mediate some solutions over these things that are non-CFO related. Some county involvement, lots of just disputes between neighbors. It was interesting because I spoke at Lacombe County yesterday, and I thought one of the councillors had a really interesting take on this gap we have of people that are acreage owners that are moving out there for their little piece of paradise, but they don't actually know what they're moving out next to, or in. And this counselor had kind of suggested that when property was sold, that possibly you could have something that that acreage owner is signing off knowing, full disclosure, this is what's around you. And same if a farm is subdividing off, quite often you'll see subdivide off that little acreage to gain some income, that there should be disclosure that way. You know, you're purchasing this, but realizing we farm this.
We had talked about that too, just to, but yeah, from a county perspective, that's more like our real estate professionals, you know, that would be their obligation, so to speak.
Yeah.
By the time we know that you know, we don't always know that properties changed hands or
Right.
we know about subdivisions, of course, but yeah.
Yeah, a large number of, I'll say 90% of our calls are just communication that has not happened. You know, quite often when they call in, one of my first things is, well, did you talk to your neighbor? Well, no, can you call them? And quite often that neighbor doesn't even know that that neighbor's upset about something. So I know communication is $1 million tool.
Right. Exactly right. Yeah. Well, it's interesting that, yeah, that you're there, and you said that you do get some referrals from like county offices or
Yes.
things like that. If a complaint was to come into our office that was kind of beyond our ability to mediate, maybe it could be referred to your office. Is that a
Absolutely.
fair thing?
Yeah. Yeah, and I've got some information that I'll just leave with you guys, some pamphlets, some handouts on AOPA and that if you,
That would be great.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments? Member Link?
So through the chair, have you seen any municipal best practices that can help mitigate those interface issues between new acreage owners? As Chair LaPriest said, we anticipate some escalation of just challenges with that as development in certain areas of the county does progress. And I do think maybe there's some ways that we can even reach out to realtors in the area or that type of thing. But I do know some municipalities will have like a county code or things that they provide new residents like through the subdivision process or redesignation or like
yeah.
concurrently with some of those planning processes.
Yeah, and I have seen, you know, in the newsletters, on websites, you know, if you're buying land in our county, know that, you know, this is what, you know, this is agricultural, you know, there is feedlots here, here, here. But then you have to get the people to read it. So you know, I guess the more ways that information comes to people, the more avenues it can come from people, then the better.
That's interesting. Go ahead.
Just one other question. What do you see as the outcomes when you go through that peer review committee and say a gap certificate is issued? What are the practical implications for the issuance of that?
So they're all, like, there's a real variation of what that recommendation looks like. Sometimes the recommendation is it stays exactly as it is. So then there is communication that has to happen to the other party to, you know, let them know this is in compliance. 9 times out of 10, there's a good communication happens in the review process, and they understand, both parties understand better where the other one is coming from. Sometimes there's a variance in where this practice needs to change a little bit in order for us to give you that gap certificate. And this has to happen by this date. And communication has to happen to both parties on, okay, yes, it's happened by this date. And very often the NRCB is involved to ensure that if there is a change in practice, that it actually happens. They're the checkbox that says, yes, they've done this. So with this, you know, we try to do a lot of communication afterwards, and for sure, somebody's always not happy. So.
Any other comments, questions? Thank you very much for coming. That was very, I didn't know exactly how the Farmers Advocate Office
Was involved.
deals with that, though. Yeah, exactly. So that was very good. I'm glad that you came in to give us this presentation. Thank you so much.
No problem. And that's just all the people that, and the different areas of our office, if you
Oh, great.
are looking for us up on our website and stuff.
Excellent.
And if you guys want, we do have an email distribution list. If you sign up for it, all of our advisories on certain issues come out that way, so.
Okay, you could access that through your website?
Yep.
Okay, that's awesome. Awesome.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Could I have somebody make a motion to accept for information? Go ahead, Amber.
I would move that we accept the presentation as information.
Thank you. I'll call the question. I'm in favor. Member Bigger?
In favor?
Member Eichert?
In favor.
Member Link?
In favor?
Member Greer?
In favor?
Member Larson?
In favor.
Member DeSmet?
In favor.
And Member Kester?
In favor.
Great, that's carried. Thank you. All right, we will move on our agenda 2.3, new business, 4-H club support. First thing, George?
Through the chair, good morning, Service Board. So before you have the 4-H club support. Wheatland County's Agricultural Service Board has traditionally supported the Rockyford 4-H beef, Standard 4-H sheep, and Hazard 4-H beef sales in 2024. And historically, the ASB has purchased 2 steers and 1 sheep annually from the 3 clubs. And 1 steer and 1 sheep are sold on the rail, and the last steer is sent for butchering and is donated to the Wheatland County Food Bank. You can see in the following chart the costs associated with that for the last couple years. Before that, the program was a little different, so I didn't feel it was comparable to include that. So before it was purchasing 2 sheep and a steer, and everything was sold on the rail, and there was no donation to the food bank. So at the ASB meeting held on July 3rd in 2024, the following resolution was passed that the board direct administration to bring back a report regarding supporting the 4-H clubs in Wheatland County, and administration has reached out to the local 4-H leaders and requested the following questions to be answered, which are listed below. And I got all the clubs in Wheatland to talk back to us about what they thought. So that is included in the package there. And the report and information are just meant to facilitate discussion regarding the support of the 4-H clubs found within the Wheatland County borders. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, the report is very interesting. You know, you think there's unintended consequences for every action that you take. We really were acting in trying to do the best thing for our community, and I can see that from some other perspectives, it might not have been the right way to go. Any comments?
Yeah, I don't know if I was surprised, but when other 4-H clubs are left out, I think that they felt that they didn't know that the program was there. And I agree that they probably should deserve some support as well. But I would like to maybe suggest or propose that we split the money between the 5 clubs, and instead of buying a sheep or a steer, and whether we base it on their enrollment, how many kids they have enrolled in their clubs, or if we just split it 5 ways, that type of thing. We can decide on that. But I would also like to suggest maybe for their participation, they would come and give a presentation to what they're working on in their clubs, maybe maybe a little PowerPoint pictures of their projects, that type of thing. And whether it's a 5 or 10 minute presentation, and then that would help also with their public speaking and working in front of a crowd. And so that's sort of my suggestion anyways.
Not shocked by the response. Seen it in other organizations where if not everyone is getting an equal share, it's an issue. So I've seen support be taken away or moved to the provincial level to try to mitigate that. I like Sandra's approach in spreading it amongst the groups within the county, but then having some accountability to report back to council. I don't think it should be a blank check. I think they should provide at least what they're funding with it, and how we split it up is, I'd love to hear from others in the group. But I like the idea of coming back and presenting and giving them that opportunity.
Yeah, I love Member DeSmith's proposal. I think it's fair. I'm grateful for administration for the work that they did and the information and perspectives that they gathered. The only thing to build on Member DeSmith's, I did hear perspectives around it might be nice to do it maybe like just split equally between the clubs. There would be some flat costs regardless of how many members you have. And just recognizing the point that was made around fundraising can be more challenging with smaller membership. This could really contribute to the sustainability, especially of those smaller clubs, and maybe even help them grow. Yeah, I love the idea of asking, and I think it would be good to specify that it would be the actual youth members rather than like a leader or somebody come. And I think, yeah, the skill set that you mentioned would be incredible for them to be able to build that with a presentation to municipal council. So very grateful. I have heard feedback with concerns around the previous way that we had supported 4-H clubs. I do think it's important and that it is a way to support youth and contribute to especially those, meeting skills and public speaking and presentation, but also the agricultural skills that are learned through multiple different programs, both the animals, but also in the multi-club. So love your idea.
I agree. Yeah, I think it's a great idea that, and as Member Link said, maybe it is okay to do it just as a 5-way split so that, all clubs have sort of the base costs or whatever that we could help with. And then, yeah, the presentation idea is fantastic. So did you want to make a motion and we can?
Sure, I'll make a motion that we split the 4-H funds 5 ways between the 4-H clubs in the community. And furthermore, well, I don't know if we make a motion about them doing a presentation or, yeah. And ask them to have some of their members do a presentation to the council.
To our ASB board or, yeah.
ASB, yes.
Yeah. It's good. Sorry, Ryan and then Rick. Oh, Rick, go ahead.
Oh, okay. So would you be okay? So a presentation doesn't really say, would you be okay with adding a presentation for how they allocated the funds so that there's a specific on it?
I'm not sure about allocating the funds, but what they're doing in their clubs as far as.
That would be fine too, yeah. Just so that there's some specifics around it.
Yeah. What projects they're doing in their club.
Right. Yeah.
So we could leave that part to administration to communicate to the clubs that that's the kind of presentation we're looking for. In the motion, we can just say it's a requesting a presentation unless. Member Greer, did you have something to add?
Just adding more specifically annually.
Annual presentation.
Yeah.
Do you accept that as an amendment? Okay. Excellent. Any other discussion?
I just have a comment.
Yeah, go ahead, Member Kester.
There's lots of clubs in the county. Some have kids, some don't. 4-H is just one part of. And why, we'll get the same questions again, why are we supporting 4-H and not Cubs or Scouts or Brownies or horse clubs or whatever? we should come up with a defining reason why we think 4-H is such a good program. I think that would showcase why we're doing it for 4-H, or we're just doing it just because it feels good. I think we should come up with I don't know what the proper word is, not a vision or a mission statement, but an appropriateness of our donation to 4-H. Why did we pick 4-H?
Yeah, that's a good comment. Member Greer?
Through the chair, I agree. I thought about that a lot when reading the feedback from the different 4-H clubs, but I think my thought and how we may be able to frame this is specific to ASB. These are the only agriculturally focused groups that I'm aware of, unless there's others that we're maybe not considering. And so we could frame it, to Glenn's point, through our ASB mission and vision, that this is supporting agriculturally focused programming.
Any other comments?
Just, I may have missed it. Is there a dollar sum that we're talking about here that should be?
Go ahead, George.
Through the chair, yes. So the allocated budget for that program is $14,000 annually. I might suggest that if there's 5 clubs and you want to split it evenly, maybe we up that budget to 15,000 for a nice round number. I could allocate that in our functional this year.
Right, we
next
have
year.
14,000 in the budget. We could take 1,000 out of some other.
So we've done our project this year, but for moving forward for the council, so instead of the 14,000, I would just recommend the 15,000 moving forward.
Yeah, I agree that 4-H is a club that promotes agriculture and youth, and that's kind of a foundational to the Ag Service Board. But I wonder if it would be useful to create a donation policy that specifies that, so that if people are wondering, we can point to that as a member link.
Yeah, I'm glad Member Kester raised that point, and I think your idea is really solid. And it could be all encompassing of other programs or organizations that we support as an ASB as well. And perhaps administration could just draft the rationale for each organization. Obviously 4-H has a rich history. It's, I think, well recognized globally. Obviously it's open to urban and rural youth, but it's always had a strong rural focus, and it's a very accessible program for all youth. And I think the alignment with the values of developing leaders who have strong public speaking skills, leadership skills in terms of facilitating effective meetings, things like that really are important for the long-term sustainability of our community, including the agriculture piece, but also just the youth leadership development that happens through 4-H. And I think there could be an argument made that there could be other clubs that could have an agricultural. I heard Member Kester reference like an equine programmer, but those aren't always as accessible to all youth, and they would probably foster leadership and some of those things as well, but it's not their sort of core mandate or focus like 4-H is. But I think if administration, I think it is important that we have some type of policy documenting it so we can point to the rationale. Thank you.
Go ahead, George.
Just through the chair. So in our strategic plan, our vision, goals, and resources, we can justify a lot of this with strategic partnerships and collaboration and promoting the ag industry as a whole. So will be fairly easy to do the reasoning for the donations. So I just want to talk that we do have that. Thank you.
And I'm sure you've looked and made sure that all 4-H clubs, that we are not missing any, but I do know that there's 4-H clubs that will do cooking. Will they be able to, is there going to be guidelines around it? Has to be certain ones, or I just need to think of that detail too.
Yeah, through the chair. So I did reach out to all the 4-H clubs in Wheatland County. However, there was some questioning about some clubs that may span additional counties, perhaps from Rocky View and Vulcan County as well. So I did reach out to see if there were any members in Wheatland County, and I have not received a response as of yet. Regarding the equine comment, the Strathmore Rusty Spurs are an equine group as well, but they are all Wheatland County kids in that group as well. Thank you.
And does their 4-H club also offer other programs like public speaking and other, not just, it's also got the leadership component to it, do you think, or do we know? Yeah, member link?
I think that's foundational to every 4-H club. Every 4-H member has some kind of, I think not everybody has to do a speech, but there's a communication expectation for each member, from what I understand. From the clubs that are presented, I think the 5, as administration indicated, those are the 5 that are in Wheatland region that have youth. There is the Arrowwood Club, I think, that is in the Wheatland region, but doesn't necessarily capture Wheatland County youth, like the Wheatland 4-H region, but don't necessarily have Wheatland youth. And the Crowfoot Club is a multi-club. I believe they have a sheep program, but they also do have multiple other, depending on the year, different offerings for youth. But that leadership component, the communication component, the focus on meetings, that would be consistent throughout every 4-H club.
Okay, good. All right, excellent discussion. Any other comments before I call the question? Then I will call the question. Member Bigger?
In favor?
Member Eichert?
In favor.
Member Link?
In favor?
Member Greer?
In favor?
Member Larson?
In favor.
Member Desmet?
In favor.
Member Kester?
In favor.
And I'm in favor. That is carried. Thank you, everyone. That's great. I'm really happy to get that kind of more online with our intention of the program, which was to support 4-H. Now we'll be doing it more equitably. So that's a great step forward. Thank you to administration for getting the feedback that we needed. Next on our agenda is the ASB Summer Tour 2026 report.
Good morning, ASB. George Bloom here again. So this is to talk about the summer tour coordinator position that would be required to take on an endeavor this size. So selecting the right tour coordinator will be crucial to the success of the proposed 2026 ASB Summer Tour. The ideal candidate should have relevant qualifications and the ability to build and maintain strong relationships within the agricultural community. A temporary position could be created, or a tender process or other mechanism could be used to secure the services of a qualified individual or company. So some of the important things that the tour coordinator will look after are the research and selection of tour locations, planning the itinerary, arrange transportation, prepare informational materials, manage bookings and payments. Some of the qualifications that should be required for this position include extensive ag experiences in Wheatland County would be ideal, excellent reputation within the farming community, interpersonal and communication skills, a driver's license, practical experience in extension planning, and strong computer skills. So you can see below some of the duties and responsibilities. This is not all encompassing. There's all kinds of nuances that come with these kind of events, as I'm sure you're all aware. And this report was meant to tie in the other reports we have as well. So we talked about the drop dead dates and the budget allotments for that. So my estimation is that the position will require about an 18th month commitment. So we're thinking around 1 to 2 days, increasing to 3 days per week as the event approaches. And at a $45 an hour rate, we estimate just over 200 8-hour work days. But it is difficult to predict an event like this if it was to move forward. So we want to let everybody know that we put some thought into this. And, I did put in the budget allotment for $325,000 moving forward. It's easier to take it out of the budget than put it in later. So I just wanted you to know that administration has put that in the ASB there, and I'm available for any questions. Thank you.
Discussion? I also thought that we should likely form a subcommittee of people to sort of steer this project. It's quite a large project and we only meet, quarterly. It's too long in between to not be like hands-on kind of thing. I think we need a subcommittee that can spend the time to work with a project manager and our administration to provide guidance. So where are we at? Are we prepared to put out a tender for a contractor to start down this road? Or I know we have been kind of contemplating whether this is the right time and whether we wanted to wait for an event center to be available. We've had a lot of things we're waiting to see. Bless you. Are we ready to pull the pin? Are we ready to fire the? Go ahead, Member Link.
I would really love to hear from our members at large, like in terms of from representing our agricultural producers, the value that you see in this. Obviously, it's going to cost taxpayers dollars, but there are, like on the flip side of that, there's a lot of public awareness that can be created, sharing our region. I think the last one we were on was Strathcona County. And so there were a lot of on-farm sales that occurred. You could purchase things and you have hundreds of people from all over the province sort of visiting farms. With that also comes biosecurity challenges, and yeah, obviously you have to address those details. But it certainly seemed like a positive experience for the farms that we visited and the different operations. It was very interesting, but I'd love to hear your perspectives.
I think my point of view is I'm concerned about the taxpayer, how much it's going to cost. And I think that it does draw people, but I guess it depends on where you decide to go as far as your tour. And I like the idea also of maybe waiting for an event center. So there's a place to host it and it's actual rule. So.
I think it's an enormous expense, and we have debated this over, I think, 3 meetings since I've joined. I haven't had the pleasure of attending one of these conferences, so it's tough for me to really understand the economics and how that is going to feed back to the county. I have to take a bit of trust in those that have attended that, or our staff that has been part of these in other jurisdictions. But it is an enormous cost to bear, and just I'm trying to get my head wrapped around the value that's going to add back to the county. That said, I think it contributes in a lot of different ways, not just economics and to the agricultural producers specifically, but also to our jurisdiction and showcasing all the other amazing things going on. It's just how to weigh that. Appreciate any thoughts on that from others in the group.
George.
And through the chair, I do have printed off previous reports for the ASB summer tour if you'd like me to hand them out. They are in the previous ASB minutes, though.
From our previous meetings?
Yep.
Oh, yeah. Sure. Yeah, that'd be great. Can I just ask, so specifically, Member Bigger, how do you feel about the idea of a tour?
So when we went to Strathcona, it was it's to showcase pretty much throughout the province. So you invite other ag boards, other councillors from other counties, and they didn't have it, but you can kind of see where it kind of just shows you rural, I don't know, rural bonding, I guess. I don't know how to explain it, but you had the Minister of Agriculture here, you showcase your MLA. I like the idea, but I do like the idea of like the event building that infrastructure that they're thinking of would be perfect if it was already done. And Yeah, I don't know, we'd have to show it in Strathmore. Like right now it'd be like the only availability would be the Civic Center, but it was informative. We went, we saw bee harvesting, it was horse. We didn't see sheep, but there was a lot of, the tour was good, and we did see a lot of things. And I mean, I feel like I know Strathcona County now, and know what they do there. I know that every road's almost paved there. They have lots of dollars. It is a lot of work, and maybe we're not ready yet. I don't know. That's where I'm at.
Mhm. Member Larson, do you have any thoughts? Where do you feel like you're standing?
I've never been to one, so I can't say. It's a lot of money. It looks like we'll gain about half back. Is that right, George? So if we had a budget of 300,000, we would expect that we're going to pay 150 of that. Okay, so it's not like we're out the total 300,000. But I guess if you could just expand on what's the net benefit to the county for it, if that can be quantified. I don't know if it can.
Through the chair, very difficult to quantify. As Member Greer had mentioned, the economics of that is very nuanced. It'd be very hard to level that out. But you know, back to our vision, mission, and goals, we do always want to promote the ag industry, and if we can do that locally, I think that's great. I do think that we do have the ability to do this well. We have some great staff, and there's some great potential tour coordinators out there as well. I know that after my stint with the Provincial Ag Service Board Conference, that put a lot of experience in me for these big events as well. So it's tough. I think the registration is what we're going to get back, and I think we had costed that between 150,000 to 175,000. Registrations are always going up. I can't see it being less than $500 economically per person. So, I mean, that's something the membership should think about is, would you want to pay $500 for this kind of thing too? And just a secondary comment about the proposed events center in the future. While we would absolutely utilize the event center for dinners and such, it is kind of a smaller portion of the tours because we would be out and about for the most parts during the bus. So the event center would be like the night evening of, and then the final night, right, with the entertainment and such. So it's not like it would be 3 full conference days in the event center, right? So just something to consider. And I mean, there's a million different ways we could have this conference too. I really like the idea of having some kind of trade show component because that really helps increase sponsorship, right? So if we can have people on the ground like we did at the Provincial Ag Service Board Conference and people are walking through these displays and stuff, I think that could be really helpful for the sponsorship components. So, and just, you know, this had been on the books for years, and I'm not sure if many people were involved with it pre-2019 when it first came up. So, you know, this is something we've been batting around for quite a while now. Thank you.
Member Greer, you had.
Just a clarifying question. I think I know it, but just to put it on the table. So we have never hosted this before, and each of the ASBs have essentially taken turns for quite a while, pre-COVID especially. It sounds like it hadn't happened for a few years, but each ASB has kind of taken the reins on this every year.
So it's not a requirement for ag service boards to host this. It's totally a volunteer thing, and nobody has hosted since COVID. And even I think before COVID, it may have been at best every 2 or 3 years. And I'm not sure if some counties have ever hosted, period, right? So there's 69 or 70 ASBs in the province. So it'd take a while to do a rotation.
Member Eichert, what are your thoughts?
Just one quick question. Is there going to be a summer tour next year? Are we going to be the first one in since
Through the chair, I've heard of no indication of any summer tours for 2025, and I've reached out several times to the province and the fieldmen, and I would be willing to send another email to the entire region again, just to double, triple confirm.
And the only reason I ask is, number one, it lowers the bar, as hard as that is to. The fact that you're the first one back, everybody's expectations are, they're just going to be happy to be able to go out there. What we have to offer in the county, I believe, is an amazing thing. I think just, I don't believe there's a full grasp of just the amount of magnitude of agricultural technology and innovation that have been done in the county that can be brought up and showcased. I understand the money is it's always a big thing, but I think the spotlight on the county, the spotlight on the producers in the county, I think is nothing but a positive. I've got no problems with having the event in Strathmore. I mean, if you're working with the Ag Society and with the town of Strathmore, with the convention center and camping and having that as your focal point, which I'm not sure it would be. The tour coordinator would probably have a better grasp on that, but that's sort of to me is a sort of a natural. And if there's with a trade show component, there's another, there's the buildings around there that there could be that kind of stuff. So I would be in favor of it. I know it's a huge undertaking, and but we have really good staff, so I think it can be done. So.
Member Link, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, mixed feelings like the other members. It's certainly an investment. I was just looking, like, I do recall Strathcona County just highlighting a lot of the benefits of it. I was just trying to see if I could find any like more specific sort of tangible outcomes that they had referenced following. In the back of my mind, I have some memory of reading that somewhere, but I haven't found it yet. In terms of what we've done in the past, the only thing that we did, not the only thing, it was incredible. We did do a smaller scale. What year was that? I did just find my notes on that. In 2018, in August, we did a Wheatland ASB tour where we basically just had one bus and we took the ASB, all of council. There were some community members that could sign up and I think pay a modest fee. And we did tour. That year we had gone to Cataland, Origin Malting and Brewing, and the Hilton Ventures farm. We also went to Heritage Harvest. We ate at the Country Farmhouse. If I'm missing somebody, I'm feeling really awful right now. But we basically did a day of visiting different operations at Cataland. They hopped on the bus and explained things as we drove through out the feed yard. And then explained Creekstone Farms as well. So we had some good diverse representation of agriculture in Wheatland and the whole farm to glass story with Origin and Hilton Ventures. So that was a smaller scale, but I think it was indicative that we had the capacity, we planned it very well. The other piece that I don't think we've referenced this morning, but we have referenced before, is there is a possibility, well, I guess you just referenced it with the trade show, for corporate sponsorship as well, whether that was in conjunction with the trade show or whether we reached out to, there'd be a lot of different diverse companies that you could reach out to for potential sponsorship, and different ways that we could recognize them at the provincial tour as well. So I'm open to it. To me, it's partially just a timing issue. I think on the horizon, we're going to see increased opportunities to host more of it, specifically in Wheatland County, to your point about it, actually having it in the rural. But a lot of that, there's still a lot of uncertainty, particularly around timelines and things like that. So, and So I'm including the Western Events and Cultural Center, but also things like potential hotels or things like that that could build out in the county that would then be direct benefits to Wheatland versus to a neighboring municipality. Again, like we want regional benefit, and I have no issue with that. But the more we can directly benefit Wheatland County ratepayers, considering we're using their funds. Yeah. So I have mixed. I don't feel like I'm settled one way or the other.
Oh, Glenn, what are your thoughts?
I've been to a few ag service tours. Basically, all you really need is an arena, ice arena. It's pretty well, that's where you served your banquet and had your entertainment. There's been a couple others had different facilities, but an arena is big enough, and we have a few of them in the county. The only thing that's maybe lacking in our county is enough hotel rooms. It would have to travel depending where you put the center. There are quite a few bed and breakfasts in Rosebud if you pick that time of year, and the show isn't on. But the educational part of the tour is hard to quantify. Same as spending dollars on education for schools. We got to have it. We got to be the best in the world, right? How do you quantify every dollar spent is earned back? But there's one other topic. Being an irrigation farmer to a certain extent is water, and the way water has hit the top of mind for a lot of people in the last couple of years. I think we have an amazing district, WID. They are very innovative. They have a lot of works, and they're on cutting edge of pipelines and the way they're distributing water. There's a lot of money, provincial dollars spent on irrigation districts, southern Alberta. And a lot of other municipalities in the province don't get them kind of money because they don't maybe have the need or the facilities. It would be a good opportunity to show off. I'm not saying that's our theme is irrigation, but it would be an opportunity for the WID and the county to show off irrigation and what it does for our county, for our rural ratepayers, and even for the towns and the villages in Strathmore, how much they benefit from businesses and recreation. I would even be tempted to send a letter to WID, and if they would participate, sponsor, let them kick it over and see what it's worth to them. But overall, I think I'm in favor of it. So it's a lot of work, and that's going to cost us some money. The benefits are going to be hard to quantify. But then again, it's education, and it's our way of life. We just heard from the Farmers Advocate Office the right to farm. An important piece of that is education and getting out and seeing the rural life. So yeah, hope I didn't talk too long.
No, that's really, I appreciate it. And that's a really good idea to reach out to WID and see if they would be interested in being a partial sponsor or to somehow kind of get on board with us. That's a great idea. So I'm hearing, okay, sorry.
This is to administration. Is there any way is there any advantage to if we sort of phase this and sort of pick a project coordinator, a tour coordinator, and get their, whether or not, like, I think we're going sort of drop dead date's going to have to be within 3 months, right? Is it not sort of January of 2025 that we're going to have to say we're going to yay or nay on this? So in the next 3 months, I think, like, an outside set of eyes that does this kind of stuff might be able to give it, say, yeah, no, this is a really good idea, and this is sort of the way it should go, and then, because what I'm worried about is if we don't make a decision to start doing something now, and I'm thinking that maybe we should go ahead and look for a tour coordinator. And, you know, if it's just a contract, then, you know, like if it's one part A of the contract leads to part B and then part C. So I don't know if that's just my idea that,
I love that idea, actually. Yeah. If we were able to hire a coordinator, contractor with a contract that says, you know, from now till January, we'd like you to kind of build out as much as you can to present to us in our January meeting what that vision is and how, so that we could really decide at that point. And that would be our drop dead, I think. I think in January we would have to decide, yes, we're going, or no, we're not. So it would be up to that coordinator to kind of convince us that it's worth the money and that the time is right now to do it in 2026. Member Greer?
I'm just curious. Was on the fence a bit, but hearing the conversation, Member Link made a really good point. I'd call it an expense, but I think we could consider it an investment. I haven't heard any members opposed to proceeding, so I wonder if we were ready without that, because I think it might be difficult for administration to bring someone on for a short period of time versus the total aspect of the project, but just for consideration. But I would say that given what I've heard from all members, that I would be ready to move forward with it.
Okay. Good to know. Member Link?
I really like Member Eichert's idea. It's a way to make an initial commitment to further explore it without taking more capacity away from our administration. We could also give the consultant aspirational goal to make the event cost recovery. Mm-hmm. There'd be no guarantee that we would, but they may have ways of trimming some of the expense side and then building up the revenue side so that we may come out cost neutral to our taxpayers. One consideration, just in terms of education, is unfortunately, at least from my experience from previous summer ASB tours, it's primarily municipal or ASB members, which obviously many ASBs have members at large, but it's not necessarily open to the broader community. So you're not getting that education to maybe people that are not already educated, at least to a certain extent. If you're sitting on an ASB, I would hope that you would have some foundational understanding of agriculture, recognizing some of us have less than others that are actively farming. But not that it's not important for us to educate ourselves, but just being aware that it's not that broader educational opportunity. But what I like about Member Eichert's is we could start with that. I do recognize the challenge that for a short-term contract, but there would be incentivization for the consultant to bring a strong, really, we could request that they bring a business case in terms of the event, and they would be incentivized to strive towards cost recovery, because I think that would tip the scales more so as well.
Yeah, I agree. I think that really would tip the scales. I think that's our only, hesitation, is just to the cost of it.
I also like, sorry, Glenn, did you want to go?
Yeah, we could offer a contract for the consultant for the total work. But we could put a clause in there that can be terminated at any time, and they would be paid for all work done up until it was terminated. If we're more or less serious about doing this, I think the consultant needs to know that. if we're just getting like a consultant for 3 months to try and convince us to do it, it won't have the same ambition. I think I would be willing to offer a contract, but we can, with the right to terminate without cause at any time, and ensure that they paid for their services up to that would offer incentive. It would protect the county from lost potential wages and stuff like that.
Good point. Good point, Member Kester. What, Member DeSmet?
So I just do like the idea of Member Link mentioning about maybe getting some corporate sponsorship, that type of thing. So would certainly be on board if, if we can lessen the cost for sure.
So I feel like we've given administration lots of options, and maybe we could leave it to them to determine the form of the contract that they think is appropriate. So I guess maybe we need a motion to direct administration to hire a contractor to, sorry, go ahead.
Thank you. Through the chair, just a quick note on process. So if I'm understanding correctly, the discussion is to bring a consultant on or a contractor on in 2024, and probably carrying it through into 2025 unless the board determines to end the initiative and end the contract. Budget-wise, the board will need the budget for 2024 to do that. I'm not sure if the board considers their current budget is allowing for that. If not, then administration or the board would also need to take that to council just for the budget approval for that, because it would be over and above what was originally approved. So just a note on process.
I'm going back to what you said earlier in the fact that we're meeting every 3 months, and there's going to have to be some sort of and I'm okay that if we were to call extra meetings and the people that can make it kind of thing, right? Like if I can make the meeting or whatever the case may be. But I think there's going to have to be a couple of discussions to be had before the new year. And it's not going to work. I don't think it's going to work in the way that. So I like the idea of a subcommittee to do that. And I know it throws another wrench into the deal. But if we don't get on this start running with it right at the beginning, we're not going to ever catch up to it, kind of thing. So I think it's just something else that needs to be looked at, needs to be considered. How do we, in the next 3 months, we have to, pick a coordinator, figure out which direction it is, and then from there decide whether or not that we're going to go ahead with this. So I don't know how this works. I know what needs to be done. I just don't know how to do it.
And I guess I need some more direction from administration. So if we don't have this in the budget, how would we proceed? We would have to go to council and ask for the amount of money that we need for these 3 months to pay a contractor. Or by the time we hire him, it'll be 2 months because we'll have to get applications or resumes or whatever, and the committee would have to decide. And so there's some time up front, even, as much as we want to get going on this, there's always these things that slow us down a bit. So we would need to go to council to request some additional budget. Is that correct?
Yeah, per the ASB bylaw, the ASB budget has to be approved by council. And so something the administration could do is put together an estimate of what that might cost for 2024. And then just take that to council if the board approves of that. That could happen even ahead of the board knowing what that cost would be, if the board just kind of wants to give a general direction to administration to come up with that estimate and then take it to council for approval. could happen that way, speed up the process a little bit.
Okay. Hamburger.
Looking at the estimate of 18 months, so that was probably assuming a start date of January 1st in 2025 budget. And given what I heard that it could be a couple months to really onboard, I mean, we're maybe talking about some days in December from a cost perspective. So I don't even know if that's a huge, I don't know the amount of what that would look like. Or if we had someone start with January, when would our first or our second meeting, I guess, be, and would that be enough time for them to put together this business case and plan in by end of Q1? Or is that too late? Just a thought, then we're not needing to, we're utilizing budget in the right year.
George.
Through the chair. Yeah, we could do this a couple ways. I think that maybe we just put in for the tour coordinator budget the full allotment for the full tour. And like Glenn had said, we can put in a clause that can be terminated at any point following member Eichert's A to B to C kind of thing like that. And I think that if we had about, I want to say 15 working days or so, that might give us enough of a backbone to build on, to say. Moving forward. This has been in my thoughts a lot lately, so I think that we can hit the ground running pretty fast on this one. Thank you.
My preference just with the structuring of the contract would be that we are transparent that while there is the clause that it could be terminated, that there has been discussion at the board level that like we have not made a absolute final commitment to the event, and just for expectation management of people applying, I think for me it's important that we are transparent about that and that there's an understanding that it could be a longer term contract or it could be a shorter term contract. The other thing that is weighing on me as well is just there are still some supply chain and particularly labor force issues which could create challenges in terms of food services and things like that. And in this region, I do hear that just from different businesses that it is still quite challenging. So I know administration had highlighted potential challenges with buses, for example, with Stampede and things like that. But I think if we had somebody who has the capacity to solely focus on this and bring that information back, it will give us a greater sense of, I realize that expectations will not be as high as if we're, following a phenomenal ASB, but we want it to be impressive and we want to showcase and highlight our region and we want it to be successful. So my key point is around just the transparency around the potential short-term nature of the contract.
I agree. I wouldn't want to have a contractor be surprised and disappointed in us that we, from their perspective, it looks like we're reneging on a deal. I would want them to know that, yes, I agree. Yeah. Go ahead.
Well, and a termination of a contract may not necessarily reflect the quality of their work. It may reflect the quality of their work that's coming back and advising this could be very challenging currently, and here's some of the obstacles we see, or here's all the opportunities that we have, put together. But just so that it's very clear that it would not be reflective necessarily on the consultant or their work if there was a termination, because
Yes.
there could be a connotation of
Yes.
that.
That's right. All right. So I'm just thinking about the timing.
Just one more comment.
Yep.
In past service boards, the meals were almost entirely provided by service clubs in the municipality. Say the Lions Club from Rocky Ford would do lunch or supper or barbecue, and then maybe Clooney would do one. They would be a fundraiser for them. They could be compensated for it. Yeah, it spreads it around, but it also gets our community more involved, and they volunteer for their club and they're there meeting everybody and seeing that. So don't underestimate what we have in the county as volunteer groups. maybe the banquet. I know there's people out there that do barbecues, and some of the Lions clubs could probably, I think, potentially handle it too. So if we got started on it, I think the workforce is there. We just have to look under the right rocks for it.
Yep, that's a great idea. Yep. Member Larson?
So just a question for George. You were saying 15 days, that's what you would put in for 2024, is that correct? So 15 days at 8 hours a day at $45 an hour is $5,400. Is that something that could be in our, like, does our current budget have that without having to seek extra approval, or?
To the board through the chair, I think there is funds in the budget for that. I guess the question to the board is whether the funds were allocated for that when it went to council for approval. And as far as I'm aware, there wasn't funds allocated for that. But
okay,
it is also a decision of the board of whether the board feels like they need to take that to council for additional approval of the funds.
So we wouldn't actually be asking for more money. We'd just be saying, we'd like to use this much money out of our budget for this project. Am I understanding you correctly?
Through the chair, ultimately, that's how it would work, even though it would be an additional line item in the budget.
So I just been thinking about the timeline, and actually we might be okay. I mean, so if we were to put something in our October 15th meeting request to look at the budget, then we would have approval theoretically at that point. So then by November, like, I don't know, 2 weeks to get a few resumes together, or 3 weeks, something like that. Then in November, we could meet to review resumes. We could make a decision. By end of November, we have somebody on board. They could spend a few weeks in December. I know it gets tricky around Christmas time, so really they have maybe 3 weeks to sort of start working on a plan and a presentation they could give to us in January. I think the timing, we're tight, but we could make it work. Member DeSmet?
I think more of your challenge is going to be able to hire a coordinator for this specific thing, because I just don't think they're out there, and you need somebody that's rural based and someone that's done this kind of thing before, as far as the logistics of transportation, meals, coordinating it all.
So I think our administration has been sending out feelers in the interim, just in anticipation of this. So I think they have a couple of ideas, and so yeah, hopefully that something will come forward. But yeah, and I would like to get, a few options that the board can decide on. So yeah, we'll see how that goes. But you're right, it could be challenging. I think our administration has some ideas. Brad?
Just another comment from administration to the board. There was some discussion about potentially setting up a committee for this, and just a question to the board to consider if they want to direct administration to draft a terms of reference for that committee, along with the other things that we're doing as well.
Member Link?
I was going to put a motion on the floor if we're ready for that.
Yes, let's do it.
So that the board direct administration to draft a terms of reference for an ASB summer tour committee under the ASB, and that they present a request to Wheatland County Council for allocation of funds for a consultant, and that they draft under Wheatland County procurement policy, I guess, a hiring process for a consultant. To bring a business case back to the ASB for a 2026 ASB summer tour in Wheatland County. And then just to facilitate that, this doesn't need to be part of the motion, but my preference would be that we do prioritize the cost recovery element and that we are transparent around the potential term of the contract, that it could vary from between sort of a short-term contract to a longer-term contract extending out to the tour in 2026. And then there just also maybe, as was referenced, a need to call a special ASB meeting to approve things just so that we hit those deadlines for making sure that we have registration out in a timely manner and are starting to book venues and transportation services and things like that.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Member Link.
Make a comment?
Yes, please.
That's a motion with multiple tasks in it. Would it be better? Is everyone comfortable? You agree with everything or not agree with one thing? Or which way you're gonna vote? So make sure the board is okay with the package deal as it was open, or do we have to break it out into specific tasks for each motion?
So for me, each of the components of the motion all predicate the other happening, but does anybody else have any other concern about the motion as it stands? No. I'm not hearing any. Are you okay with it, Member Kester? Do you feel like you would vote one way on one part of it and another way on another?
No, but I just wanted to make sure everyone is aware of it. It's a package deal.
Yes. Okay. Okay. Thank you for that. Any other discussion? I will call the question. Member Bigger.
In favor.
Member Eichert.
In favor.
Member Link.
In favor.
Member Greer.
In favor.
Member Larson.
In favor.
And Member Desmet.
In favor.
And Member Kester.
In favor.
And I'm in favor. That is carried. That was awesome discussion, you guys. I think we're doing the right things by hashing things out and really making sure that we're all really comfortable with the way this is going to go. So I think we have a great plan now, and we'll go forward. Thank you. Do we want to take a 10-minute recess? Yes. Okay. We will take 10 minutes and be back at 10:42. All right, I'll call our meeting back to order. We are at 2.3.3, the proposed 2025 ASB budget. George, take it away.
Good morning, ASB. George here again from administration. So we have a proposed 2025 ASB budget here. So as per the ASB bylaw, the budget requires council authorization as part of the county's annual budget process. This report outlines the projected costs for 2025 related to the ASB's operational activities and programs. Upon preliminary approval by the board, administration will present a detailed budget to council for review and approval during the county's budget cycle. So below is a summary of the mowing program, producer funding, vegetation control, extension events and award program, weed inspections, communications, pest control programs, agricultural plastics programs, collaborative surveys we do with the province and federal governments, roadside seeding program, seed cleaning, plant inspection, and catch-all bucket of others. I just want to take a minute to talk about the budget revenues here. So the Provincial Agricultural Service Board grant program for 2020 aims to support the ASBs in fulfilling legislative requirements that will be our weed, pests, and soil inspection processes and officers under the Ag Service Board Act in developing and delivering resource management extension programs. Each year, Wheatland County receives $166,000 approximately in legislative funding and $74,000 in resource management funding. These funds help to cover non-capital expenses, including salaries, professional development, contracted services, extension activities, and are a major contributor to the ASB's projected total revenue of $251,747. So the budget summary is presented in chart form below. This displays the projected and proposed 25 budget for the Wheatland County Ag Service Board. with the totals added in with the projected direct revenue grants in the bottom box. And the report is intended to assist the Ag Service Board in understanding the activities of the Agriculture and Environment Department and to provide the board with an opportunity to approve the proposed 2025 interim budget or direct revisions before it is presented to council for final review and approval. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions or comments for George? Member Larson.
So where do we see the tour thing in this budget?
The tour has not been projected in this, so I've put a placeholder in the budget that will go to council for $325,000 at this point in time with the.
Okay, gonna, as long as it's there somewhere, that's all I was
it's in the
concerned
council
about.
portion.
Okay, thanks, George.
Any other questions or comments? I'm actually having just a little bit of trouble with the math. So maybe you could help me with that. So the two, in terms of revenue, so 166 and 74 is 240. And you've got a 251 total revenue budget. So that's, the difference is 11,500, but we have revenue of 77. I'm just not sure how we're coming to the numbers.
Sure. So the Alice producer funding program, that 52,000 that comes in and out every year, a lot in annual payments, and we'll delve into that this afternoon at the Alice committee. I'd just like to mention the extension events and workshops, the revenue for the 10,000 there, that's estimated on registrations. And there's a little nuance to the agricultural plastics program. We had put in $10,000. Last year was $19,000. The previous year was $6,000. So we always try and keep it as low as possible. I expect it to be pretty high this year, higher than last year, certainly. So that could change too. And the WRP program as well, there's about $200,000 sitting in there as well. And that money just goes out to the producer funding projects.
Kind of a banker for that sort of thing, like we just hold the funds and then distributed them.
Yeah, and then I just wanted to mention in the ASB reserves, there's about $1.5 million for capital in there as well.
Okay.
Oh, and the 251 is all the grant funding that's included, right? So
251 is the grant funding.
At the bottom of page 20.
Oh, here we are. Oh, I see. Gotcha. I think we're good. Thanks. Thank you. Thank you for the explanation. Yep. And did we, the other thing I didn't see in here is the 4-H budget that we have is 14,000, I think. Is it somewhere in one of the?
yes, we have included that under the extension events and workshops.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Just one clarity question, follow up to Member Larson's question. So if I understand correctly, we would have funding for a consultant to do the work for the tour, but the actual cost would hit 2026, correct? Just to clarity, because I think I heard it was going to be presented to council, but that would be 2026 funding, correct?
So I do have operating room in this budget cycle for this particular project that would end January 1st, and then we would present that report with the allocated 3 or 4 weeks worth of time. And then for the rest of the amount, we would probably put it in for a multi-year portion, right? It would be like a capital kind of thing. I don't know if Brad can explain that a little better.
Sure, to the board through the chair. This table currently does not have the budgeted for the consultant in 2025. So for 2024, the board has directed administration to request additional funds in the 2024 budget for the ASB for the consultant. In 2025, that will need to be added to what the board sees in front of them. And then in 2026, depending on when that happens, that budget will need to be added to the 2026 budget cycle as well, which would be presented and contemplated in the fall of 2025. However, administration could put that into the background budget as a forecasted plan for 2025, 2026. So is that, hopefully that answers your question.
It does, thank you.
And for the 2025 budget cycle, we would be paying deposits and some fees as well. So we would have to have that in there as well. Thank you.
Another question that I have, the agriculture plastics program. I know that we recover some of the costs to do that through the selling the plastic to the recycling firm, but have we ever contemplated having a fee for that service? Would that be something that we would want to do ever?
Through the chair, not to my knowledge. We've talked about this informally before, that if there was a fee that people may not participate and that there is a cost to having those grain bags come to our landfills as well.
Okay, that's a good point. Yep. Okay. Any other comments or questions? Member Larson and then Member Bigger.
Just you, with the 4-H one, we had 14,000 allocated. Do we need to add that 1,000 to make it 15? Like, do we need to do that? Or is that something you can just magically work into your budget?
Through the chair, so the 24 allotment of $14,000 has already been expended in purchasing. So for the 25, I will make the adjustment to 15,000 just so it can be split 3 ways easier.
I'll move that the board directs administration to submit for council's approval the proposed Agriculture Service Board 2025 interim budget as summarized in the report.
And can we add to also include additional funds as discussed for the consultant? Sorry, don't need to? Okay, okay, sorry. Yeah, so in this, what is presented here does not include any money for the consultant. So we would need to just say we would like to submit this budget with the inclusion of, if you don't mind.
Yeah, no.
Motion.
With the addition of the amended to include the consultant for 2024.
2025.
2025.
Excellent, thank you. Do we want to say consultant and fees?
ASB, potential ASB conference expenses.
So they're saying for the consultant and fees for the
ASB too.
ASB summer tour, proposed ASB.
Here, so what we have is that the board directs administration to submit for council's approval the proposed Ag Service Board 2025 interim budget as summarized in the report and as amended to include the consultant and fees for the proposed ASB summer tour. Does that sound like your intention?
Just a question, do we also need to specify in the other amendment to up the additional $1,000 in extensions for 4-H? Otherwise, it sounds good.
To the board through the chair, this particular table does contemplate only the 14,000, and so the board could also amend it to include the extra 1,000 under that particular line item for that program.
And also to include an increase of $1,000 to, which one is it again? Extension events and workshops.
Thank you, Shanna. Any other comments or discussion? I will call the question. Member Bigger.
In favor.
Member Eichert.
In favor.
Member Link.
In favor.
Member Greer.
In favor?
Member Larson.
In favor.
Member Desmet.
In favor.
And Member Kester.
In favor.
And I'm in favor. That is carried. Thanks, everyone. Okay, we'll move on to 2.3.4, which is our bursary decision. The committee has made a recommendation. We received 3 applications for the bursary. George, did you want to do the presentation actually? Sorry,
George here from administration again. I'd like to talk about the 2024 Agricultural Service Board Bursary Program. The Agricultural Service Board may provide up to $10,000 annually in bursaries, with individual awards ranging between $500 to a maximum of $2,500. These bursaries are available to students residing within Wheatland County who are pursuing post-secondary education in agriculture or environmental science-related fields. The Bursary and Awards Committee is recommending an award of $2,500 to the 3 applicants who applied for the bursary, for a total amount awarded of $7,500. The names of the chosen educational programs and each of the 3 individuals being recommended for the Wheatland County Agricultural Service Board bursary are provided below in the table. So we have 3 applicants, Rhett Gregory, Dexter Hale, and Nolan Parker. And Rhett is taking agricultural and heavy equipment mechanics. Dexter is taking ecosystem management, and Nolan is taking agricultural management. Here for any questions.
thanks, George. Any questions for administration or the committee that decided, made the recommendation? If not, a motion to approve the recommendation?
I'll move that the board approves the recommendations from the Agricultural Service Board Awards and Bursary Committee to award $2,500 to each of the following individuals: Rhett Gregory, Dexter Hale, and Nolan Parker.
Thank you very much. Any discussion? I'll call the question. Member Bigger?
In favor.
Member Eichert?
In favor.
Member Link?
In favor.
Member Greer?
In favor?
Member Larson?
In favor.
Member Desmet?
In favor.
Member Kester?
In favor.
And I'm in favor. That is carried. Thank you very much. We'll move on. Next item is the chair's report. Pretty short. We had our ASB meeting in July. I was honored to go to the BMO Farm Family Awards in honor of the Christensen family. I attended the Ag Smart Conference in Olds. That was an excellent conference, and I would say it's almost like a trade show. It had like lots of different equipment that they were demoing and crop demonstrations, different things like that. We got to do the tour of the facility of the Olds College campus and surrounding areas. It was really, really well done. Member Eichert and I both attended a farm safety course. It was like a beta test for global training. They developed a farm safety course, and we attended, provided a bit of feedback, but it was really well done. They covered all the bases of potential risks on agricultural properties And really, they talked about the kinds of incidents and still deaths that are occurring in farming accidents. And so it's really a great thing to show awareness and provide some training to producers. So they are fine tuning their program, and once they have it finalized, I think our Wheatland County will support them through advertising and potentially hosting some training sessions here or whatever we can do to promote their course. It was really well done. And then I also spoke on the Bow River elected official call with Martin Shields. I was raising the issue of the strychnine problem that we're still hearing from lots of people, and myself included. The industry has been promoting the great efficacy of burrow oat bait, but my experience and others that I've heard, it's not as effective as strychnine, and you have to rebait over and over and over again. So I was raising that to Martin Shields as our elected federal representative, and he had just indicated that he's aware of it, and that if we wanted to write letters to him, but didn't have a lot of other suggestions of going forward. But I'll move my report as presented, but I'm happy to take any questions or comments from the board. Yes, Member Link.
Thank you to Chair LaPriest for raising the issue on the call with MP Shields. Definitely appreciate that. I do just want to add that Councillor Clausen had raised the issue, sorry, Deputy Reeve Clausen had also raised the issue, and he and I had had some discussions. He was talking about doing potentially another resolution or something, just because we are hearing increasing concerns around the issues with the Richardson ground squirrels. I did have an opportunity to chat with John Barlow, the federal shadow minister of agriculture, and he had indicated that if there's any producers who have information about impacts, damage or losses, if those could be reported to his office. And he said if our agricultural services department is hearing reports of that or collecting any information, he's happy to have that anecdotal level data and information, or if we have more sort of cumulative data that, or comprehensive data that our Ag Services Department has collected, his office would be interested in that as well. Thank you.
The other thing that I was thinking about in one of our Ag Service Board resolutions, provincial Ag Service Board resolutions, one of the responses, I believe, from Minister Sigurdsson was he had suggested that he could investigate the opportunity to do some compensation for losses through AFSC. And I don't know where that stands. So we might have an opportunity to perhaps write a letter to his office to ask where that stands. I could look back on the resolution, the response to that resolution that he'd indicated that, and we could maybe follow up with a letter to their office to see if he's still investigating that opportunity or not. Not that I think that compensation is the best way to do it. I think that incentivizes lack of action, but if people are affected to the extent that they are and are finding the solutions not effective, then that's kind of the last resort, I think, that we have to kind of go to. So I guess, first of all, there's a motion on the floor to accept my report as information. Any further discussion?
I think just with the compensation, it would just be for reseeding, that type of thing, because I don't know how you would compensate for anything else, but a lot of the farmers just go ahead and do it, just reseed it. And don't expect any but there is some significant cost for sure.
Or they just have acres that are lost that they don't reseed, that are just lost
For sure that
acres. So
they
you
would
could,
be,
you could
be hard to
calculate,
get in there to reseed.
you could calculate your yields and then calculate those acres and say that's a potential loss of so many bushels of wheat or whatever. Yeah. Anyways, let's vote on the motion to accept my report. Member Bigger,
In favor?
Member Eichert,
In favor.
Member Link,
In favor.
Member Greer,
In favor?
Member Larson,
In favor.
Member DeSmet,
In favor.
Member Kester,
In favor.
and I'm in favor. That's carried. I will make the motion to direct administration to send a letter to the Minister of Agriculture and Irrigation to inquire about the suggestion of compensation for crop losses due to Richard's ground squirrels. I think it's worthwhile to just send the letter, and as a, if nothing else, it's more awareness that this is an issue and we need to address it somehow. Any discussion on the motion? I'll call the question. Member Bigger,
In favor?
Member Eichert,
In
Eichert?
favor.
Sorry. Member Link,
In favor.
Member Greer,
In favor?
Member Larson,
In favor.
Member DeSmet,
In favor.
and Member Kester.
In favor.
And I'm in favor. That's carried. Thanks, everyone. All right, next on our agenda is the Fieldman's report. George?
Through the chair, good morning. So you can see total inquiries this year to date are 234. This is general inquiries to the ASB departments, the Ag and Environment Department, thank you. First cut of all grader beats was completed on September 18th. I just want to talk about a few highlights here. We did 4 weed inspections as per our MOU with the villages of Rockyford, Standard, and Hazar. We've completed our pest crop surveys for Bertha armyworms, grasshopper, wheathead, barley. We're currently undergoing clubroot surveys now. You can see some of the Alice Wheatland and EFP, WRP things happening. Under our capital projects, we finally received our tractor and 1-pass mower in July. So as of mid to late July, when we got it going, we finally had our full fleet, which is very exciting. So we have our 4 roadside mowing tractors and sidearms going out there with 2 1-passes. So the 1-passes have been shaping up really well. This allows us to do a lot of herbicide application right as we're going, and preliminary results are very promising. It looks just great. So under the upcoming events, we have the Farm Succession Workshop in Rockyford, the Rosebud Tree Planting with the Red Deer River Watershed Alliance in October 23rd, Ag Connections Conference, which I did include listing in the correspondence. Administration is going to be attending this one as well. So if there were some members that would like to carpool, there's options there. The ladies' livestock lessons will be January 17th and Ranching Opportunities February 5th. Both of these are outside of Wheatland County, but Wheatland County has been participating in these programs for a long time. With that, you can see that the resolution tracker has been updated in the portion. And I'm available for any questions. Oh, one other thing I forgot to mention. So in my last council report, we did have the federal compliance officer come and do a pesticide inspection on Wheatland County. Now, it hasn't been completed. They're doing some back end checks on our records and stuff, but they did say we were in great shape. So we were really thrilled to have some validation on that. Just, it's been so long. The agricultural foreman had been here for 30 plus years and never seen a compliance officer come and look. So I'm happy that we were passing that one.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Great work. Excellent. Thank you for that. Any questions or comments about the Fieldman report? Member Larson.
Just one, I don't know if the Rosebud people will notice it, but it's Martin Avenue, not Martian Avenue.
Oh. I had a question about mowing. So now that you have your full complement, and I appreciate the way that we work at where we do one pass through the full county and then go back to the ones that were done early in the season to remow as many as we can before it before we have to switch to our winter program. But if a resident has like kochia weeds growing in the ditch, they are able to call in and would they be able to get mower out to us in a special area that's like it's not common, I think, to have it growing on the ditches, but if there was like an infestation, would we be responsive to go out to an area that's maybe not on the schedule?
Through the chair, yes, I think I know the particular complaint and we have addressed that concern. This particular complaint was not a regular right-of-way. This had been more of a right-of-way type scenario. And so once requested, we do respond, yes.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So often oil field companies are responsible for these roads because they are not technically roadworthy yet. And so we often, if there's weeds on stuff, we do ask the oil companies to take care of those first, and that they have been fairly responsive to that in the past. In addition to that, I just would like to comment that I think that if you're going to crop the right of way, you should maybe take a look at the weeds too.
Mm-hmm.
Just a thought.
Okay. Okay, well, that's good feedback. But if there was such a thing, you would certainly respond and send them over to the area in question. Thank you.
Yes, that's
And
correct.
yeah, and you do circulate back if it's an oil and gas access, you would circle back to them to request that they, because that's an issue that's you know, a prevalent one in the area. The Surface Rights Board has been trying to address the negligence, I would say, of oil and gas companies of controlling the weeds, that they're meant to do that. It's part of the lease agreement is that they control that. So that's interesting. Good. Well, thank you. Thank you for that. Any other comments or discussion?
Just want to thank the team for all the great work that we're seeing here, but also it was really neat to see the roller in action at EggSmart. So thanks to George and his team for being part of that and showcasing some of that great innovation.
Thank you for that. You're exactly right. That was really great that they participated in the AgSmart conference. All right, a motion to accept the Fieldsman report. Good. Thank you, Member Larson. Any further discussion? I'll call the question. Member Bigger.
In favor?
Member Eichert.
In favor.
Member Link.
In favor.
Member Greer.
In favor?
Member Larson.
In favor.
Member DeSmet.
In favor.
Member Kester.
In favor.
And I'm in favor. That's carried. And there is another resolution regarding the resolution tracker. Member Link.
I can move that the board accept the updated ASB resolution tracker as information.
Thank you very much. Any discussion? I'll call the question. Member Bigger.
In favor?
Member Eichert.
In favor.
Member Link.
In favor.
Member Greer.
In favor?
Larson.
In favor.
Member DeSmet.
In favor.
Member Kester.
In favor.
And I'm in favor. That's carried. All right. Last on our agenda is correspondence. We have quite a long list of correspondence. Is there anything that anybody would like to highlight or? I wouldn't mind highlighting. So the report card on resolutions is interesting. I like to see where we're standing with resolutions that go to the provincial ASB. Many of them are still in progress, but some are accepted in principle. It's just kind of good to read through that. Page 84, there's a really good information about integrated pest management of Richardson's ground squirrel. And so this is really highlighting the importance of taking a multi-pronged approach to it. And I do think that that is a critical thing. You know, strychnine is gone and we're not likely to get it back. So we do need to start thinking about things as taking multiple approaches, which is cumbersome for sure. But there are a few different suggestions there, and so it's noteworthy. Page 124, there is a thank you from Global Training for us participating in the farm safety course. Page 136, there's a kind of information on what it would take to get an emergency use for strychnine. And so that's something that I think our provincial ASB is looking into. It would need to come from the Alberta government. It would need to be data driven. So I think they indicate there's a survey that will be coming out. So if anybody sees that, wants to participate, that would be really useful. And then page 139 was information that was sort of in our presentation this morning about the Agricultural Operation Practices Act. So it just kind of summarizes what the act, how it can protect farmers from nuisance, provides people an avenue to report on nuisances, but it also gives producers, it sort of defends them, I guess, from nuisance complaints. So that's good information as well. Then there was a strychnine usage timeline, which was very interesting. And so it just shows over the years from 1928 to current how strychnine has been used, removed, yes. So it's something that's been kind of coming back in and out of our toolbox, I suppose, for a very long time. So it's just very interesting. And then the Ag Connections Conference in Medicine Hat on November 20th. Should be a good one. I'm glad our administration is participating. Just, yeah, good information. Any other thing that anybody wants to raise or discuss? If not, then a motion to accept the information in the correspondence.
Also move.
Oh. That's great. Member Larson raised his hand. Did you want to make a motion? Member Larson?
Oh, yeah, I'll move that we accept it as correspondence.
Great, thank you. I'll call the question. Member Bigger?
In favor.
Member Reichert?
In favor.
Member Link?
In favor?
Member Greer?
In favor.
Member Larson?
In favor.
Member DeSmit?
In favor.
Member Kester?
In favor.
And I'm in favor. That is carried. That brings us to the end of our agenda. Thank you very much, everybody.